Hello. Today I will be featuring the gearing, since I haven't actually covered this ship in 0.60 yet, and as all the other ships, it of course features a new build. Now, first of all, looking at the matchmaking, well, the enemy actually has 3 radar cruisers. They have Baltimore, Donskoy and Chapayev. They also have a Z-52 and an Akizuki, both which are able to compete quite easily with the gearing, because the gearing happens to be one of the fatter DDs, which means of course that their AP does significant damage to the broadside of the gearing. And my team on this side is very slow. They're not reacting at all, they're not moving at all, and RPF is pointing at the DD, most likely heading this way. Since I am RPF located and it's pointing right ahead of me, it makes sense that there is a DD heading right towards me. All of this combined means that I have absolutely no interest in pushing into sea. I have to abandon it. If you look at the left side of the map on the minimap, you can see just how far these ships should be, and then when you look at my side of the map, you see just how slow my team is on reacting. So, of course, as I mentioned then, I use RPF on the gearing, and especially situations like this where it's a pretty obvious sign that there's a DD heading towards B, I just abandon this completely. The problem with island cover is of course, well, not the problem, but the whole point of island cover is of course that cruisers are able to position quite close, and with them having so many radar cruisers, they might be able to hide radar cruisers right behind the islands, radar me without me having any sort of warning, and having to fight both a cruiser and either one of those DDs would be a huge issue. A is being capped, so I assume at least one DD is there. So I'm only dealing with one DD here that's already going towards C. So I'm gonna move towards B instead, since RPF is helpfully telling me that B should be completely clear. The Amagi is surprised about me changing my mind, but I'm saying no, I'm not going, because they're still in spawn. In fact, look at the minimap where they are. They are still a whole square away from the cap. In fact, my cruisers are further away than the battleships are on the left side. They're just playing far too passive. Even this Amagi is too far. He thinks he's close enough, but he's not. He should be significantly closer. He should be like right next to the cap, because, well, there's no risk of being torped since you can hide behind the island that's there, and he can be close enough to actually be able to consistently deal damage. So the positioning basically on this side of the map is what ultimately the position of my teammates, and that's something you want to keep in mind always when you go in with gunboats. Well, any DD, but especially gunboats, which you try to actively fight enemy DDs in. They obviously have their team pushing up to support their gunboat, whereas my team isn't supporting me at all. So taking a fight there would be playing into the enemy's favor, because, well, he would get a lot of help. Not to mention, I couldn't smoke because they would radar, whereas my New Orleans is so far away that his radar wouldn't reach him. Ultimately, absolutely no point in going to sea. Just as important as it is to keep a track of where your enemy is going when you look at the minimap, also keep in mind where your teammates are going. It's a thing I actually tell a lot of people, especially new players. When you're 2 minutes into the game, take a stock of where all your teammates are. Usually 2 to 3 minutes is a good timer to check. And if your team, take a stock of where you are and where your teammates are, and then position accordingly. Sometimes your teammates position terribly, like for example my teammates did here, so I adjust my own plans. It happens. It's better to not play the optimal way just for the sake of not being alone than playing the optimal way and going alone. This is actually a common mistake you see a lot of people do, is they try to play the optimal way. For example, in standard battles they split up, like one side, they go to one side because they see it's not defended at all. But if your entire team is lemming training to the other side, if you go alone to one side, then you just leave yourself alone and you're gonna guaranteed get killed. So there's no point in splitting up for the sake of splitting up. If you already have teammates going to one side supporting the side that has less teammates, that's a great idea. But you often see people run off alone, and then they start bitching at the team for lemming training when they should have themselves joined the lemming train instead of running off alone. Important note here, I landed a torp. And I'm spotted. Akizuki, he left his smoke. I thought he would sit in his own smoke, but Akizuki actually left his own smoke, so I popped my own radar, my own smoke just in case. Important factor here is, of course, here's the gearing strength. I landed a torp. It was only one torp, it was 13k damage, but the important thing is I triggered flooding. Flooding means he has to repair whenever a battleship gets flooding, they automatically instantly repair, so I know his repair is on cooldown, so I start raining HE. Now you notice I'm moving my crosshair around. The idea is, of course, I want to land on the front part of his ship with these shells, because I already started 2 fires, so I want a 3rd fire on the front part of his ship. So I intentionally aim at the very front part, and there we go, I started the 3rd fire. Now I adjust my crosshair and try to hit the shells on the back part of his ship, the stern. Sorry, I meant the bow earlier. The stern part of his ship, so that I can maybe get a 4th fire. If you hit the same part where you already have a fire burning, you won't start any additional fires. You need to hit parts that haven't been set on fire yet to get those. Regardless, I got 3 fires on him, and now I'm bailing because there are threats. First of all, I don't know where the Baltimore is. I've lost vision of him. He could be pushing me from there. I don't know what the Akisuki is doing. He could be pushing me from there. A lot of unknowns right now, which makes it very risky to sit in the smoke. I might be even being torped. The Akisuki was kind of pushing, very slowly though. But I chose to play it safe and leave the smoke because it wasn't worth being greedy for that 1 additional fire. Now I open up on the Akisuki because he's in such a vulnerable position. The Akisuki is of course one of the slower DDs, and he makes a pretty significant mistake here. And that's of course that he starts reversing, trying to get into stealth fire because he's tunnel visioning the Atago. Now one of the absolute strengths of gunboats is well, you're squishy, you eat a lot of damage, your modules break, but you are quite small, and if you keep on the move, you're quite hard to hit. That's your strengths. Your weaknesses are, of course, the whole squishiness. And this guy, by starting to reverse, he gives up his maneuverability advantage, and he gives up his size advantage, because even if he's a small target, if he's reversing, he's quite easy to hit. So he's given up all the advantages. You see, I'm moving, I'm changing my course, I'm accelerating, I'm slowing down, I'm changing all these things, and this Akisuki is unable to hit me. I've also I became undetected there because I'm stealth firing from range, so I'm able to easily kill this Akisuki. So he misplayed this as a gunboat. He gave up the natural advantages he had as a gunboat for the sake of trying to deal more damage and just trying to reverse. Just something you don't want to do. His smoke was on cooldown from having used it earlier most likely, so hence his decision to make that, well, that was his decision, and I strongly disagreed with it. Worth noting, by the way, on Kurfürst, even though I only landed 1 torp that did something like 13k damage, I ultimately did almost 70k damage to him just with those fires, because that's of course one of the main reasons for using the torps, or why you only really need to land 1 torp with this ship, is that you just want to blow their repair, and then you use the fantastic gun power and to start fires and get that additional damage on later. The Z-52 is occupied at A. He's trying to hold A against them, which, I mean, he should have abandoned that position long ago. His teammates have abandoned him, they have run away or died, and my entire team is zerging that side. So the Z-52 is fighting a losing battle. He's also the last DD they have, so even if they kill the Yugama, he is going to get taken out sooner or later, and he should have abandoned it, and so he's going to get caught. I'll launch some preemptive torps here because I thought they might push this side, but it looks like they are actually afraid to push this side because of how many ships are sitting south of A, so they're turning into C, which means my torps are probably going to get wasted. Luckily for us, the enemy Yamato has wasted a lot of time hunting down our Amagi, and in general the enemy Yamato has positioned himself away from the battle, where of course all the strengths he brings has been lost. Here I use one of the natural advantages of the gearing with Concealment Expert and the Stealth module, and that's of course being able to stealth fire. I think I can stealth fire all the way to 9.7 km, so yeah. Oh, I'm spotted by something? Must be the rune. Yeah, it's the rune that's close enough. I get undetected again. And I just keep stealth firing. The good thing with stealth fire, especially against big ships like battleships, is you have a very easy time landing shells, and you can start fires and such. So I mean, I don't even see him anymore, but it doesn't matter, the ship is so big. There we go, actually getting a fire started on him. Let's see if we can get a second fire, maybe blow his repair. Corpse from somewhere. A Z-52, as I said, the Z-52 died as I predicted. I am spotted by the North Carolina pushing up, and they're pushing from every side, but I do have, important note here, I have vision of the Baltimore. When you're facing radar cruisers, always do a quick check of where the enemy radar cruisers are before you smoke up, because it's a common mistake of smoking up in front of radar cruisers, and there's absolutely no need to do that. So I saw the Baltimore, he's down south, he's occupied with our battleships, he won't be able to push up to radar me. Okay, this is a good time to smoke up. Rune. Well, first of all, a Rune is a cruiser, so HE does a fantastic amount of damage to cruisers, and you can actually quite melt them. If they get broadside, then AP is even better. And the way he's pushing in this aggressively towards my smoke, he wouldn't do this unless he has hydro. So if you see especially a German cruiser push in like this aggressively right towards your smoke, you can bet that he has hydro. I'm almost certain he has it. He's always maneuvering. He's also maneuvering to dodge my torp, so I'm already accelerating because I'm expecting to get hydro spotted. And as I said, I get hydro spotted, but his push this aggressively, of course, leaves him exposed to all my teammates. So he tunnel visioned and was hoping to go for the, I don't know, kill me in the smoke with his hydro. But the way I positioned my smoke was basically I had allies on both sides on the other side of this island. So if they rush me down like that, well, they expose themselves to all of my teammates. So it was a smoke that was very hard to push into without being punished. I parked behind the island to shoot this North Carolina. He tried to get some shells on me, couldn't, he hit the island, but of course I have US arcs, which quite easily arc above this little gap, so I'm just nailing him from behind the island. He's got a fire, so I'm switching to the Bismarck and the Kurfürst. I have forced both their repairs, I think. I think I landed 2 torps earlier, and I think I landed 1 on both. So I'm just gonna start hammering some shells in there, see if I can get some fire started over here. And of course I'm resetting the cap as well, which is also nice. Kurfürst is about to get me in vision. Yep, he does get vision of me. I'm trying to keep the island between me and him, but honestly he's so occupied with everything else. His secondaries do open up, so I'm gonna start creating a bit of distance in case he does decide to shoot me. But you can see just how much damage even HE does against him, because I'm able to consistently hit his superstructure, and that's of course where you do full damage with HE. Well, not quite full damage, but you do a lot of damage. So you can see the consistent damage adds up very quickly. The Bismarck, that's the guy who ate my torps earlier, and he's very low. Once again, at this range I can easily hit the superstructure, so I'm just gonna kill him off real fast if I can. Alright, he got killed off pretty easily. They are shooting me, but there's this nice little peninsula I can go into cover if I need to, but I'm not really too worried. Of course I'm half HP at this point, which means I run Adrenaline Rush on the gearing, which means that my torpedo and gun reload has gained more than 10% bonuses, which is the same as running torpedo reload and of course basic firing training. The North Carolina finally decides to push, so I launch 1 volley of torps to see if before I see which way he's going. He disappears, but I saw he was turning into the right before he disappeared, so I already know that my next volley of torps is going to be harder to the left. I'm gonna see, will I even land a single torps? Any single torp actually? I did land 1. He will most likely repair, at least I would expect him to repair. I might have held the second volley of torps a bit longer, because of course US repair lasts 20 seconds, so if I had waited longer I might have been able to trigger the flooding with the next volley of torps. I'm actually surprised no one has vision of him. I guess the Kurfürst behind me isn't running hydro, but I mean, if this North Carolina wants to push me, he can push me because he's pushing into a hell of a lot of pain. In fact, I have a Kurfürst and the Tirpitz right behind me, so his push is gonna cost. Also, he starts giving me broadside here, so even though I have cost his repair, I switch to AP here because, well, you can see the numbers that I'm putting up with these AP shots. That looks like something you'd see out of Khabarovsk. People often underestimate gearing AP damage, and it's very, very high, as you can see. 2k, 2k, 1k, 1k, like constant damage numbers, and it adds up very, very quickly. Now he's in the middle of, well, my friendly battleships, and he's pretty much dead. I switched to HE because he's angled. I can no longer get those easy AP shots in on him. And yeah, he should be pretty dead. Oh yes, he's actually getting torped. You also might have noticed that I didn't bother zooming in as I was sailing away. That's because I wanted to ensure that I did not ground. So I kept in the third person view. You can easily shoot in the third person view if a target is that close. I mean, you're not gonna miss from that range, especially on a ship as big as a battleship. They have 2 targets left now, a Yamato and a Kutuzov that's somewhere north of me. I'm gonna go help with the Yamato first, since that's probably the primary target. If the Yamato has any sense, he deletes the Montana first on his left. The Montana is giving far too much broadside. And the Yamato can of course overmatch the Montana through the nose also, so it should be an easy kill. But where is he shooting at? I actually don't know what this Yamato is doing. Are these New Orleans and Mogami the ones that were horribly positioned at sea? Where they kind of continue their pattern of being completely out of position. Those guys, well, sometimes cruisers don't really know where to position, but they could have positioned significantly more aggressive if they just made use of terrain, because this is of course one of the few maps where you can make use of terrain quite easily to cover yourself. And finally, the last target left is the Kutuzov. RPF points. I'm sailing towards the island while using RPF to make sure to see which side he goes around. Will he come around the right or the left side? But RPF keeps pointing to the left. If he had turned towards the right, I would already see it on RPF. So I already know that I should be running into him on the left side here. Let's see. I got torps ready if I need them, and I mean I might as well launch them at him when I see him, but I doubt I'll actually need them too much against the Kutuzov, because with me being this low HP, my DPM is actually quite insane, and I don't fear really getting into a firefight with a Kutuzov, because, well, people underestimate gearing damage a lot in a straight up firefight, especially against enemy cruisers, especially against squishy cruisers like the Kutuzov. Yeah, launching my torps in a wide volley, and honestly I just start firing. I don't bother smoking up, since no one would probably spot him anyway. Instant fire, but you can see the damage I'm causing to him. Like, he's melting. He's straight up melting. Yes, he does damage to me, but he's actually melting faster than he can deal damage to me. I got my second fire on him. My torps are about to hit him. In fact, the next shell would probably have killed him, but the Montana kill steals the Kutuzov. That guy also stole the Kurfors from me, I think. Anyway, game ends 230k damage, which is of course always nice. Only got high caliber as the reward though, a bit underwhelming. Looking at the team score, that Montana that was in charge, or actually I don't think it was the Montana at the end that stole that one, managed to top the scores by I think 20 XP more than me, 30 XP. What a hacker, clearly. Detailed report though. Here's one of course the key points when it comes to gearing gameplay. My torpedo damage is 66,000 or 67,000. I only landed 5 torps this entire game. I only landed 5 torps and I only did 8,000 damage in flooding. Whereas my guns did 110,000 alone, plus almost another 50,000 in fires. So you can see just how important the guns are on the ship and how people really need, when it comes to gearing and dealing damage, it's so much about utilizing the guns to the utmost. The torpedoes are, I use the torpedoes as a tool, as I've actually made a gearing commentary pretty recently before 0.6.0, which I called torpedoes are but a tool, and that same gameplay continues in 0.60, is they are a tool to force the enemy to use their repair, and once the repair is down, that's when you bring out the hellfire in the form of your guns and you just start melting him. And this of course is one of the reasons why I don't like IFHE on the gearing, because you want to be able to start those fires. If you use IFHE, yes, you gain some HE damage, woo, but you lose all those fires, and the whole synergy between forcing torpedoes to cause flooding and then using guns to cause fires, it kind of goes out the window as soon as you introduce IFHE, because you nerf your own fire chance so heavily, and I don't feel it really works with the gearing at all. Anyway, since I'm talking about the build, I might as well move on to my recommended build for the gearing. Starting off, of course, consumables. Use the premium smoke regardless of if you can afford it or not. Do it anyway. Repair if you can afford it. Upgrade wise, main armaments mod 1, absolutely. You don't want to be losing torpedo tubes or guns. Here there's some options. You can use aiming systems mod 1 like I do, or you can use AA guns mod 2 if you want to, if you feel you face enough carriers to justify it. I personally don't, and I don't really division much with carriers either, so I don't really bother with it, but it's a perfectly viable option here. It's pretty much up to you at this point which one you choose. Torpedo tubes mod 3, I don't feel you need the range or the reload. I feel having those torp tubes at a 15% lower reload is so much more valuable, because, well, you want to be causing that flooding, you want to be forcing that repair. Propulsion mod, even if you had last stand, losing engine is awful, especially on a fairly slow DD like the gearing. You don't want to lose all that speed. Propulsion mod 2, because your rudder shift is already fantastic. I think the default rudder shift is what, 3.3 seconds, so you don't need it, whereas accelerating in a smoke can be life-saving. Concealment system for that stealth, of course. You saw how much I stealth fired. Preventive maintenance, once again, don't want to be losing guns or torpedo tubes. Last stand and adrenaline rush. Superintendent and survivability expert. And of course, concealment expert, and finally RPF. If you had to take this in order of priority, I would start with preventive maintenance, follow it up with last stand, then I would take superintendent, concealment expert, survivability expert, and then adrenaline rush and RPF as the last one. If you're leveling a new USDD, this is the line I would go through. This is the priority I would choose, because this build works on any USDDs in my opinion, because all these things are needed on every single USDD. Anyway, that was my gearing commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it.